The declaration, the galaxy was burning with whispers, rumors carried across stars by traitors, mercenaries, and wandering fleets that a new empire was rising and declaring war on all who did not kneel. This empire was not of humans. It was forged by alien coalitions who had united under one banner after centuries of fighting among themselves. Together they claimed dominance over dozens of star systems, and one day, their message reached Earth. It came as a signal, bright and cold, repeating in 100 alien tongues. To the people of Earth, you are an unregistered race. Your growth threatens the balance. You will submit your fleets, your resources, and your world to the Galactic Alliance or be destroyed. You have one cycle to decide. Most species, when faced with such a message, bowed their heads. They knew what came after refusal. Fleets of warships, entire planets turned to ash, yet the humans who gathered in Earth's council chamber did not tremble. The leaders listened, the generals listened, and even the civilians who intercepted the message on open networks read it with wide eyes. And then something strange happened. Instead of fear, a smile spread across faces. The aliens expected panic. They expected desperate begging. They expected humans to fight among themselves and surrender. But humans had lived through centuries of war on their own world. They had seen empires rise and fall. They had survived weapons that could wipe cities in a flash. They had endured plagues, disasters, famines, and still they stood. In the great hall of Earth's United Council, one of the commanders rose and spoke. His voice carried not just across the room, but later across every broadcast station on Earth. The galaxy has declared war on us. Then let them know who we are. We are humanity. We do not kneel. We do not run. We do not break. If they want a war, they will meet a species that has smiled in the face of death for millennia. That speech was carried across the planet, across the colonies on Mars, across the stations around Jupiter, across the mining fleets drifting near the Kuiper Belt. People did not cry. They did not collapse. They looked up at the stars and felt a fire ignite in their chests. The first step was unity. Old rivalries between nations fell silent. Military factions merged under one command. Engineers worked without sleep. Factories that once built cars and aircraft now turned out plasma cannons, railguns, and armor plating. Shipyards glowed with sparks as welders reinforced old freighters into makeshift warships. Every child in school heard the same lesson. Earth has been challenged. Earth will answer. In the void of space, alien fleets moved, confident. They had crushed worlds before. They had forced entire civilizations into slavery. They expected Earth to break the same way, but their spies reported something that unsettled them. Instead of fear, humans trained instead of surrender. Humans prepared instead of silence. Humans broadcast music into space, drums and songs that carried a rhythm of defiance. A message was sent back to the Galactic Alliance, not with trembling hands but with bold words. To those who think themselves masters of the galaxy, you made a mistake. You thought humanity would bow. You thought Earth would break. We do not fear your war. We welcome it. And when you come, you will learn why even our own world tried to kill us 1,000 times and failed. The galaxy laughed at first. They said humanity was too young, too small, too untested. But in the corners of the stars, whispers began to spread. Some alien merchants told each other. They smiled. Did you see it? The humans smiled at war. Others felt a chill, for no empire had ever faced a species that could laugh at extinction. In the weeks that followed, Earth became a forge of steel and fire. Every shipyard alive, every scientist working, every soldier drilling. And while the galaxy gathered fleets to march toward Earth, humans lifted their eyes skyward with that same fearless smile, as if daring the universe to try. And so began the war that no one expected to last long, the war that would either crush Earth forever or change the galaxy forever. Because when the galaxy declared war, Earth did not cry, did not run, did not surrender. Earth answered with a fearless smile. The gathering storm. The stars above Earth grew restless as fleets of the Galactic Alliance moved closer. Billions of alien lives had seen what happened when their empire declared war. They believed Earth would be no different. They thought it would take only weeks. Yet inside human space, things were changing faster than any enemy expected. Factories that once built everyday machines were turned into foundries of war. Underground bunkers became command centers. Satellites were refitted with rail cannons. Orbital stations that once carried families and farmers now bristled with missile pods. Everywhere, humans worked with a single purpose. What made humanity different was not their weapons alone, it was their spirit. When news of the war spread, even those who had no training volunteered. Doctors, farmers, teachers, even old veterans who thought their fighting days were gone, stood up again. Humanity had always fought for survival, but now they fought not only for survival, they fought for pride. In the great space dock above Mars, an old mining vessel was being reforged. Its metal frame was patched with new armor, its mining lasers reshaped into weapons strong enough to pierce warship hulls. The workers who built it named it Defiance. They painted the word in bold letters across the hull. It was not sleek, it was elegant, but it carried the fire of human will. The Galactic Alliance sent another message, this time colder. Earth, your time is nearly finished. When our fleets arrive, we will not ask again. Your cities will burn, your people will kneel. But when the message was played on Earth's networks, people only laughed. They shared it across every channel with jokes, with songs, with speeches of strength. Instead of breaking, humanity grew bolder. In the council chambers, the generals reviewed maps of the stars. They knew they could not outnumber the Alliance. The enemy had thousands of warships. Earth had only a fraction of that. But humans had something else. They had creativity. They had stubbornness. They had the ability to turn weakness into strength. One general leaned over the star map and said, "We don't need to outnumber them. We only need to outthink them." And so began the plans. Not to fight like the rest of the galaxy, but to fight like humans always had, with traps, with ambushes, with a will to bite down even when wounded, all across the planet. Training camps were filled, men and women drilled under the harsh sun, in freezing snows, in storming rains, because Earth knew war was never gentle. On the colonies, children practiced in simulators, not to fight yet, but to learn the spirit of resistance, the idea that even the young would not be broken. In space, the first human fleets gathered, not polished, not perfect, but alive with energy. Cargo ships turned into carriers, fishing vessels into scouts, passenger liners into armored transports. Every hull was used, every resource stretched. Engineers worked until their hands bled. But no one complained, because every ship meant one more chance at survival. The galaxy watched, expecting fear, but they saw something else. They saw broadcasts of humans laughing, drinking, training, building. They saw soldiers carving symbols into their armor, words like hope, defiance, and smile. They saw children sending messages into the void saying, "We are not afraid." Among the alien empires who had joined the Alliance, unease spread. They whispered, "Why do humans smile? Do they not understand?" But deep down, some feared the truth, that humans understood more than anyone, that they had looked into the eyes of war before and chosen to grin back. The first skirmishes came at the edge of human space. Alliance scout ships met human patrols. The galaxy expected the scouts to return with easy victories, but the patrols did not run. They attacked with a fury the aliens had not seen. Old freighters slammed into enemy ships with suicide charges. Fighters danced between plasma fire with reckless courage. Even when destroyed, they inflicted wounds. Reports carried back to the Alliance High Command. The humans fight differently. They do not retreat when outnumbered. They do not surrender when surrounded. They smile even as their ships burn. Commanders dismissed it at first, saying, "It is only the beginning. Earth will soon fall." But already cracks appeared in their confidence. On Earth, people cheered each small victory. Even a single alien scout destroyed was celebrated as proof that humanity would not bow. Families gathered around screens, watching transmissions of their defenders standing tall, and always, always there was that smile. A smile that said, "We know who we are, and we are not afraid of you." As weeks passed, the fleets of the Alliance drew nearer. Vast armadas that had crushed civilizations before, their ships blotted out the stars. When they arrived, the galaxy waited for Earth to finally break. But Earth had been waiting too. Every station, every shipyard, every bunker prepared. The final council before the Great War was short. A single statement was agreed upon: we do not kneel. And when the sky darkened with enemy fleets, humanity's answer was not silence, but a fearless smile shining brighter than the stars. The first clash. The day finally came when the sky above human space filled with enemy shadows. The Galactic Alliance had sent a fleet so large it stretched across sensors, cruisers, dreadnoughts, and carriers that had crushed entire civilizations before. They came with banners raised, believing the war would end quickly, believing Earth would be silenced forever. But Earth was waiting. Ships forged from steel and stubbornness stood in orbit, not as polished or perfect as the enemies, but burning with human spirit. Commanders sat in their chairs, pilots gripped controls with steady hands, engineers watched reactor levels with eyes sharp as knives. The order passed across every channel: hold the line. The Alliance began their assault with overwhelming fire. Beams of plasma and torrents of missiles poured down. The void lit up like a storm of suns. Alien commanders smiled in arrogance, expecting human lines to shatter, yet the humans held. Shields flared, hulls cracked, but no one turned back. The first line of defense answered with a roar. Railguns thundered, missiles screamed, and mining lasers turned into weapons cut through alien armor. A freighter named Iron Will moved into the thick of the battle, too slow, too heavy to dodge, but its crew had decided they would not leave without leaving a mark. They pushed engines to maximum and rammed straight into an enemy cruiser. The explosion tore both ships apart. Human lives were lost, but the Alliance fleet saw something they had not expected. Humans were willing to die if it meant dragging the enemy with them. Everywhere, human tactics confused the Alliance. Instead of fighting in neat formations like other races, humans fought like wolves. Ships scattered, regrouped, attacked from blind spots, used asteroids as cover, even feigned retreats only to ambush with hidden guns. Alien commanders shouted in frustration. The dire strategies built for order could not crush this chaos. In one sector, a small squadron of human fighters broke through enemy lines, weaving between plasma beams as if dancing. Their leaders shouted through comms, "Keep smiling. Make them afraid of the grin." And they did, striking enemy engines, crippling ships before darting away. Their laughter carried across channels even as explosions surrounded them. The battle raged for hours, and still the humans did not break. On Earth and Mars, people watched live feeds, saw ships torn apart, saw families lose loved ones, and yet instead of despair, they stood taller. They whispered to each other, "We are still here." Alliance commanders began to realize something frightening. Normally by now, a species under assault would send surrender signals, begging for mercy. But the humans did no such thing. They kept fighting, kept bleeding, and every time a human ship died, another message followed. "We do not kneel." One alien admiral slammed his clawed hand against the console, shouting, "Why do they not fear us? Why do they smile when they should cry?" But no one could answer him, because they too had seen it. The images of human soldiers grinning even as fire consumed their ships. The turning point came when Earth revealed a hidden weapon. Deep in the asteroid fields of the belt, old mining rigs had been rebuilt into massive cannons, silent until now. Then they fired, long rail slugs screaming across the void, tearing through Alliance hulls like paper. Dreadnoughts that had never been scratched before cracked open in seconds. Fleets that thought themselves untouchable recoiled. Cheers erupted across human channels, voices loud and fearless. "This is Earth. Remember our name." Missiles followed, swarms of drones launched from converted freighters. Every trick humanity had built in secret now unleashed. The Alliance fleet staggered, but victory was not yet complete. The humans had on a stand, not the war. Ships still burned, families still grieved, the cost was heavy. Commanders knew this was only the beginning. The Alliance had thousands more ships waiting, and this was only the first wave. Yet something had changed forever. The galaxy watched the battle through intercepted transmissions. Worlds that had long feared the Alliance saw something impossible. A young race that should have been crushed, smiling in the face of annihilation, refusing to bend, and suddenly whispers spread, "Maybe the humans are different. Maybe they cannot be broken." On the surface of Earth, crowds gathered under the night sky. looking up at the stars where their defenders fought. Instead of silence, music filled the cities, drums and voices singing in defiance, because humans had always faced the impossible, and they knew the truth. Even if the galaxy came with fire and chains, Earth would meet it with a fearless smile, and that smile had begun to frighten the conquerors more than any weapon ever could. The aftermath of fire. When the smoke cleared from the first great clash, the galaxy expected to see Earth broken, fleets scattered, leaders begging for terms. But instead, Earth still stood, scarred yet unyielding, its defenders bloodied but alive, and its people smiling even brighter than before. Across human space, the battle became legend overnight. The names of ships like Iron Will and Defiance were whispered with pride. Children painted them on walls, soldiers repeated them before training, families lit candles for the lost, but with heads held high, for every sacrifice was not in vain. It was proof that humanity could not be crushed. The Galactic Alliance reeled from the humiliation, their commanders furious, their leaders shouting at one another. How can a young species resist so long? How can a handful of worlds hold against fleets that conquered entire empires? They poured more ships into the war, more weapons, more threats, but behind their power there was now something new: doubt. And doubt was dangerous because across the galaxy other races were watching, races that had bent the knee long ago, their people chained, their fleets dismantled, their voices silenced. They watched humans fight and they whispered, "If Earth can resist, why not us?" In secret caves, in hidden channels, in dark corners of star systems, the first sparks of rebellion flickered. On Earth, leaders gathered again in their great hall. They had lost many, but they did not speak of surrender. Instead, they spoke of preparation, of striking harder next time, of showing the galaxy that humanity was not a fragile flame, but a wildfire. One general leaned forward and said, "They think we are stubborn, but they do not yet know the truth. We are relentless." The council agreed. Factories roared day and night. More ships built, more weapons forged, more traps hidden among asteroid fields and moons. Every citizen gave something: metal, time, skill, blood. Because everyone understood this was not just a war of survival, it was a war for identity, a war to prove that humanity would not bow. Meanwhile, the Alliance began sending propaganda across the stars, telling other worlds that humans were reckless, that they were mad, that they would bring ruin to anyone who supported them. Yet the more they tried to paint humans as dangerous, the more people listened with curiosity. Mad? Fearless? Smiling at death? Then maybe they are the ones we need. Stories spread. Of a human pilot who laughed while weaving through enemy fire, of a commander who gave his last breath to ram an enemy dreadnought, of a child on Mars who looked at the stars and said, "We will win because we don't know how to give up." These tales became louder than Alliance threats. The next battles came, and though the Alliance outnumbered them, humans fought with cunning, striking supply lines, setting ambushes, dragging enemy fleets into asteroid storms. They refused to fight the enemy's war. They fought their own, and with each victory, small or large, the galaxy's fear of humans grew. But fear was not the only thing spreading. Hope was too. On enslaved worlds, people painted the symbol of a smile on hidden walls. Merchants smuggled human songs into distant stations. Even some alien soldiers whispered in their barracks, "Better to fight like them than live like this." The Alliance tried to crush this with terror, burning colonies, silencing rebels. But no matter how many they struck down, more stood up, because the image of humanity's fearless smile had already taken root. It was no longer just Earth's war, it was becoming something greater. In one hidden transmission, intercepted later, a group of alien rebels sent a message directly to Earth, their voices shaking but strong. "We see you, we hear you, we believe. If you fight, we will rise." And when Earth's leaders heard it, silence filled the hall, broken only by one statement: "We are not fighting alone anymore." This was what the Alliance feared most: not human guns, not human ships, but the human spirit spreading like wildfire. Because once the galaxy learned that it was possible to resist, The chains that had lasted centuries began to crack, and still through every victory, every loss, every whisper of rebellion, humanity kept its promise, never kneeling, never bowing, and always, always answering the galaxy's wrath with that same fearless smile. The galaxy on fire. The Alliance sent their largest fleet yet, a force so massive that entire star maps had to be redrawn to fit it. Dreadnoughts the size of cities, carriers filled with endless fighters, legions of war machines built to erase not only armies but entire civilizations. To the galaxy it seemed Earth's final hour had come. But Earth did not wait in silence. Earth smiled, fleets rose from orbit, patched ships beside brand new war machines, carriers forged from passenger liners now bristling with cannons, stations turned into fortresses, asteroid belts seeded with mines and traps. When the sky darkened with enemy fire, humanity answered with a light brighter than dawn. The battle shook the heavens, plasma storms tearing across void, rail slugs smashing hulls apart, missiles streaking through fields of wreckage. Human ships fell, but with everyone lost another tore through the enemy. With every explosion a voice carried across comms, "We do not kneel." The Alliance had never faced such defiance. For every ship they destroyed, humans made them pay tenfold. Ramming, ambushing, striking supply lines, turning defeat into traps. Chaos spread through the enemy fleet. Admirals shouted orders, but the humans fought like storms, impossible to predict, impossible to cage. And then something happened the Alliance never imagined. In the middle of the war, other fleets appeared, not Alliance reinforcements, but rebels, alien ships flying colors long thought dead, vessels that had once been enslaved now turning their guns on their former masters. Inspired by Earth's courage, worlds long chained had chosen to rise. The galaxy trembled as rebellion erupted in every corner, factories sabotaged, slave armies refusing to march, old empires once crushed igniting once more, all shouting the same words, "If Earth can fight, so can we." Humanity's smile had become the spark that lit an inferno. In the chaos, the Alliance fleet began to falter, not only from human fire, but from betrayal in their own ranks. Soldiers deserting, captains refusing orders, because fear of humans had turned into something more dangerous: hope. On Earth, people watched the transmissions of alien fleets joining the fight. Tears mix with pride, because this was no longer just humanity's war, it was the galaxy's war for freedom, and humanity had become its symbol. The climax came when Earth's flagship, forged from the wreckage of dozens of battles, led a desperate charge into the heart of the Alliance fleet, its hull scarred, its weapons burning, but its crew smiling as if daring the universe to stop them. They drove straight into the command dreadnought of the Alliance, unleashing every weapon, every last missile, every ounce of fire left in their veins. The explosion that followed shattered more than steel. It shattered the illusion of Alliance invincibility. For when their great flagship burned, the fleets that remained lost their will, retreating into chaos, leaving behind wreckage and silence. The war was not ended in one battle, but its outcome had already been decided. The Alliance could never again command the galaxy through fear, because fear had met humanity, and humanity had smiled back. In the months that followed, rebellions grew into revolutions. Chains fell, worlds freed, and though humans had lost much, ships, families, cities, they had gained something greater: the respect and awe of the stars. Across alien worlds, murals appeared of human faces smiling into the void, songs written of their defiance, stories told of how a young species looked into the eyes of death and refused to kneel. When asked later why humanity never surrendered, one human commander answered with simple words: "Because surrender is not in our blood, because we have always smiled at the impossible, because Earth is not just a world, Earth is a spirit." And so the galaxy changed forever, not because humanity had the strongest fleet or the greatest weapons, but because when the galaxy declared war, Earth answered not with fear, but with a fearless smile, and that smile taught the stars how to stand tall.